One late-night email meant only for herself lands in the inbox of a billionaire CEO. When he shows up with groceries and a mysterious past connected to her family, Zora's life changes forever. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Zora Bennett stared at her laptop screen, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. The kitchen clock showed 11:43 p.m., but she still had papers to grade and a blog post to finish. At 40, she thought she'd have her life more put together by now, but here she was, a substitute teacher by day, food blogger by night, and perpetually behind on both. "Focus, Zora," she muttered to herself, taking another sip of lukewarm coffee. Just finished the grocery list for Lisa's birthday dinner. Her sister's birthday was this weekend, and Zora had promised to recreate their mother's famous pasta sauce. Since Mom's passing 3 years ago, Zora had appointed herself the keeper of family recipes. It was a responsibility she took seriously, even when she was running on fumes. She typed the last few items on her list: San Marzano tomatoes, not the canned kind, fresh basil, get extra, garlic, at least 6 cloves, Mom's secret ingredient, don't forget. Zora's finger hovered over the send button. She always emailed herself shopping lists. It was easier than writing them down. Her eyes closed for a moment as fatigue washed over her. She clicked send and shut her laptop. "Tomorrow's another day," she whispered, stumbling toward her bedroom, without bothering to check if the email went through. Morning came too quickly. Zora rushed through her routine, grabbing a granola bar as she headed out the door. Thursday meant substitute teaching at Lincoln High for Mrs. Patel's English class. The teenagers kept her on her toes, but she enjoyed the challenge. "Ms. Bennett, did you grade our essays yet?" asked Emma, one of her more eager students. "Almost done," Zora lied. "They were still in her bag, untouched. You'll have them tomorrow, promise." The day passed in a blur of Shakespeare discussions and grammar corrections. By 3 o'clock, Zora was ready to tackle her grocery shopping for Lisa's birthday dinner. She pulled out her phone to check her list, but couldn't find the email. "That's weird," she mumbled, scrolling through her inbox. Nothing. She checked her sent folder and froze. The email hadn't gone to her own address. In her exhausted state, she'd typed in kessler@kesslerventures.com instead of her own email. Her heart sank. She had no idea who H. Kessler was, but she doubted they'd appreciate receiving her random grocery list. Zora shrugged it off. "They'll just delete it," she told herself, heading to the grocery store without her list. She'd have to remember the ingredients from memory. Back at her apartment, arms loaded with grocery bags, Zora fumbled with her keys at the door. Her tiny 2-bedroom in the less fashionable part of town was nothing special, but the rent was manageable on her modest income. She had just set the bags on the counter when a knock sounded at her door. "Coming," she called, assuming it was Mrs. Ramirez from next door, probably needing to borrow sugar again. But when she opened the door, it wasn't her elderly neighbor. Instead, a tall man in an expensive-looking suit stood there, holding a reusable grocery tote bag. His dark hair was neatly combed, and his serious face bore the slightest hint of uncertainty. "Zora Bennett?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth. "Yes," Zora replied cautiously, wondering if she should be concerned. "I'm Hayden Kessler," he said, as if that explained everything. When she continued to stare blankly, he added, "You emailed me your grocery list." Zora's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was half asleep and wait." She paused, looking at the bag in his hand. "Is that Hayden Kessler? The Hayden Kessler, CEO of Kessler Ventures, whose face occasionally graced the business section of newspapers, held up the tote bag. "I wasn't sure if it was a test or a cry for help, but either way, I brought dinner." Zora blinked, certain she must be dreaming. "You brought my groceries?" "Every item on the list," he confirmed, "though I had to go to 3 different stores to find the San Marzano tomatoes that weren't canned." Zora laughed nervously, feeling heat rise to her face. "Mr. Kessler, this is bizarre. You could have just ignored the email." "Hayden, please," he corrected her, "and I was going to delete it, but then I saw the subject line, for Mama's pasta night." His expression softened slightly. "It reminded me of dinners with my grandmother." She was Italian, the only person who ever taught me anything about cooking. Zora stood in her doorway, utterly confused. This wasn't at all how she expected Hayden Kessler to be. In the few articles she'd read, he was described as elusive, serious, and intensely private. Yet here he was, standing at her door with groceries, talking about his grandmother. So you thought, "What? You'd just show up with groceries?" she asked. "I thought," he said, "you might let me watch how it's done." Zora should have said no. Having a billionaire CEO in her modest apartment was absurd, but something in his eyes, a hint of loneliness perhaps, made her step aside. "I've never cooked for a billionaire before," she warned. "I've never watched." "A food blogger cooked before," he countered, stepping inside. Zora's apartment suddenly felt very small and very messy. Stacks of student papers covered the coffee table, and food photography props were scattered around her tiny living room. Her kitchen was functional but basic, nothing like what someone like Hayden Kessler must be used to. "It's not much," she said apologetically. "It's a home," he replied simply, setting the grocery bag on the counter. "Mine's bigger, but it's not nearly as—" He paused, searching for the word, "lived in." As Zora began unpacking the groceries, she couldn't help but notice how out of place Hayden looked in her kitchen. His tailored suit and polished shoes contrasted sharply with her mismatched dishware and the refrigerator covered in magnets. "You can take off your jacket if you want," she offered. "Cooking can get messy." Hayden hesitated, then carefully removed his suit jacket and folded it over a kitchen chair. He rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt, revealing strong forearms. Zora tried not to stare. "So what's the plan?" he asked. "Well, I'm making my mother's pasta sauce recipe for my sister's birthday dinner this weekend. It's a family tradition." "And the mysterious mom's secret ingredient?" he asked. "I was intrigued by that one." Zora smiled. "A dash of cinnamon. Most people never guess it." "Really? My grandmother used cinnamon too." For the next hour, Zora directed Hayden in the kitchen. He chopped tomatoes awkwardly, holding the knife like it was a foreign object. His precise, careful cuts looked like he was performing surgery rather than preparing dinner. "You don't cook much, do you?" she asked, watching him meticulously dice an onion. "I have a chef," he admitted. "It's been years since I made anything more complicated than coffee." As they worked, the kitchen filled with the aroma of garlic and basil. Hayden seemed to relax slightly, removing his tie and placing it with his jacket. Zora found herself telling him about her sister Lisa, her struggle to keep up with 2 jobs, and her dream of turning her food blog into something that could support her fully. "Why don't you?" Hayden asked, stirring the sauce as instructed. "Go. Full-time with the blog, I mean," Zora laughed. "Because I like having a roof over my head. The blog makes enough to cover groceries and some bills, but not rent." "Your recipes seem detailed and passionate," he said. "Have you thought about a cookbook?" Zora nearly dropped the wooden spoon she was holding. "You read my blog?" Hayden looked slightly embarrassed. "After I got your email, I looked you up. Zora's kitchen comfort is quite good." "You read my blog," she repeated, stunned that Hayden Kessler had taken the time to look her up. "The story about your mother's Sunday dinners was moving," he admitted. "I lost my grandmother when I was in college. She was the only one who made our house feel like a home." Something in his tone made Zora pause. This man, with all his wealth and power, suddenly seemed vulnerable, human. "What about your parents?" she asked gently. "My father built the company. He didn't have time for cooking or family dinners. My mother was busy with charity boards and social events. Nonna was the one who made sure I ate something besides takeout." His eyes focused on the bubbling sauce. "This smells like her kitchen." They had at Zora's small dining table, the sauce served over spaghetti on her everyday dishes. Hayden took his first bite and closed his eyes. "This is extraordinary," he said. "The cinnamon brings everything together." "That's what Mum always said." Zora smiled. "Food has memory," she told me. "It can take you back to places and people you've lost." They talked through dinner, about Zora's students, Hayden's work with green technology companies, and their shared love of old movies. Hayden was surprisingly easy to talk to once he loosened up. He had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, making her laugh unexpectedly. "I should go," he said finally, glancing at his watch. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." At the door, he paused. "Thank you for dinner. It's been a long time since I've had a meal that wasn't business-related." "Thank you for the groceries," she replied, "and for not thinking I'm crazy for sending you my shopping list." "I'm glad you did," he said simply. Then, more hesitantly, "Maybe I could come back sometime? Watch you prepare another recipe?" Everything about this situation was surreal. The richest man in the city, standing in her doorway, asking if he could come back to watch her cook. "I'm making chicken piccata. Next week for my blog," she heard herself say. "Tuesday at 7. Hayden smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face. "I'll bring the wine." After he left, Zora sat down heavily on her couch, wondering what had just happened. She picked up her phone and called her sister. "Lisa, you're not going to believe who just left my apartment." Lisa, of course, didn't believe her at first. "Hayden Kessler, the Hayden Kessler. Zora, have you been drinking?" "I'm dead serious," Zora insisted. "I accidentally sent him my grocery list, and he showed up with everything on it. That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the beginning of a true crime documentary." Lisa laughed. Zora rolled her eyes. "It's neither. He was just curious, I think. Lonely, maybe." "Honey, billionaires don't show up at random women's apartments with groceries unless they're interested." "It's not like that," Zora protested, but even as she said it, she wasn't sure. There had been moments, during dinner when she caught Hayden looking at her, with an expression she couldn't quite read. "So when are you seeing him again?" Lisa asked. "Tuesday," Zora admitted. "He's coming back to watch me make chicken piccata," Lisa squealed. "You have a date with Hayden Kessler." "It's not a date," Zora insisted. "It's a cooking lesson." After hanging up, Zora cleaned the kitchen, replaying the evening in her mind. She couldn't remember the last time she'd enjoyed a conversation so much. Hayden was nothing like she expected, not arrogant or condescending, just quietly thoughtful. Before going to bed, she checked her email. There was a new message from H. Kessler at KesslerVentures.com. "Zora, thank you for dinner and conversation. Both were exactly what I needed. I'm looking forward to Tuesday." How simple, direct, but it made Zora smile. She replied, "Hayden, next time I'll teach you how to chop vegetables without looking like you're performing surgery. See you Tuesday." Zora, she hit send before she could overthink it, then got ready for bed. As she drifted off to sleep, Zora wondered what her mother would think about the strange turn her life had taken. One accidental email and suddenly everything felt different. Little did she know that across town, in his penthouse overlooking the city, Hayden Kessler was thinking the same thing, about accidental connections and how sometimes the most unexpected encounters could feel strangely like coming home. Tuesday couldn't come fast enough for Zora. She spent the weekend celebrating Lisa's birthday, carefully avoiding too many questions about Hayden Kessler. Her sister, however, was relentless. "So is this billionaire of yours coming to dinner tonight?" Lisa asked as they cleared the dishes after her birthday celebration. "He's not my billionaire," Zora insisted. "And no, this was family time." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "You're blushing." "I am not," Zora protested, though she could feel the heat in her cheeks. "It's just hot in here." Lisa nodded, unconvinced. "Just be careful, Zoe. Men like that, they don't usually date substitute teachers." "We're not dating," Zora said firmly. "He's just interested in cooking, if you say so." When Tuesday finally arrived, Zora found herself unusually nervous. She cleaned her apartment twice, changed outfits 3 times, and prepped all the ingredients for chicken piccata with extra care. She told herself it was because she might use the photos for her blog, but deep down, she knew it was because of Hayden. At precisely 7 o'clock, there was a knock at her door. When she opened it, Hayden stood there in dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt, more casual than the suit, but still obviously expensive. He held a bottle of white wine and a small gift bag. "Right on time," Zora said, smiling. "Always," he replied, stepping inside. He handed her the wine. "I was told this pairs well with chicken piccata." "It's perfect," she assured him, taking the bottle. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing the gift bag. "Just a small thank you for Thursday," he said, looking slightly embarrassed. Open it later. Zora set the bag aside, curious but not wanting to make him uncomfortable. Ready to learn how to chop vegetables properly? Hayden rolled up his sleeves. Teach me everything. The kitchen soon filled with the sounds of sizzling, butter and the smell of lemon and capers. Zora positioned herself behind Hayden, guiding his hands as he sliced the chicken. Like this, she said, her hands over his. Not so stiff. Let the knife do the work. She was acutely aware of his broad shoulders, the warmth of his back against her front. It felt strangely intimate, this simple act of teaching someone to cook. My grandmother tried to teach me this, Hayden admitted. I was always too impatient. What was she like? Zora asked, moving away to prepare the sauce. Hayden's expression softened. Passionate, stubborn. She came from Italy with nothing but a suitcase. And her recipes. My grandfather fell in love with her at first sight, or so the story goes. Sounds romantic. It was. They were still holding hands 50 years later. He paused, dredging the chicken in flour, as Zora had shown him. What about your mother? You mentioned she passed away. Zora nodded. 3 years ago. Cancer. She fought. Hard, but... I'm sorry, Hayden said, and she could tell he meant it. She was the heart of our family. After she died, Lisa and I made a pact to keep her recipes alive. It's our way of keeping her with us. They worked in comfortable silence. For a while, Zora occasionally giving instructions, Hayden following them with surprising attention to detail. When they finally sat down to eat, Hayden took his first bite and smiled. I helped make this, he said, sounding almost proud. You did, Zora agreed. You're a natural. I had a good teacher. Throughout dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Favorite books, childhood memories, places they'd like to visit. Hayden told her about his latest green energy project, his eyes lighting up when he discussed sustainable technology. It's not about the money, he explained. It's about leaving something good behind. Zora found herself drawn to his passion, his quiet determination to make a difference. This was not the cold businessman the newspapers described. After dinner, they moved to her small living room with glasses of wine. Hayden looked at the stacks of papers she'd hastily hidden under magazines. Student essays? He asked. Zora nodded. Still need to grade them. I promised the kids they'd have them back. Tomorrow. Do you enjoy teaching? I do, she said honestly. It wasn't my original plan, but there's something rewarding about it. Seeing a student finally understand a concept, it's magical. What was your original plan? Zora hesitated. Culinary school, actually, but then Dad lost his job and college. Tuition had to come first. By the time I graduated with my English degree, Mom got sick and, well, life happens. Hayden nodded thoughtfully. Life does happen, but sometimes it happens in unexpected ways. He glanced at her. Like accidental grocery lists. Zora laughed. I still can't believe you showed up at my door. I can't either, he admitted. It's not something I would normally do. So why did you? Hayden thought for a moment. Curiosity at first, then, I don't know. Something about your email felt genuine, real. My days are filled with people who want something from me. Your grocery list wanted nothing. The evening stretched comfortably late. When Hayden finally looked at his watch, it was nearly midnight. I should go, he said reluctantly. You have papers to grade and I have an early meeting. At the door he paused. Can I see you again? Zora felt her heart skip. I'm making lasagna on Friday for the blog. You could come help if you want. I'd like that. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed her cheek. Good night, Zora Bennett. After he left, Zora remembered the gift bag. Inside was a small leather-bound notebook with her name embossed on the cover. A note read, For your recipes. She hugged the notebook to her chest, her thoughts swirling with confusion and excitement. This couldn't possibly go anywhere. They were from completely different worlds. And yet, over the next 3 weeks, Hayden became a regular visitor to Zora's kitchen. Every few days he would arrive with wine or ingredients, eager to learn another recipe. Their routine was always the same: cooking, eating, talking until late into the night. Sometimes his hand would brush hers as they chopped vegetables. Sometimes their eyes would meet over glasses of wine. but neither of them acknowledged the growing tension between them. Zora's blog began to flourish. She found herself inspired to create new recipes, each one secretly imagined with Hayden in mind. Her sister noticed the change. "Your posts have been amazing lately," Lisa commented during their weekly coffee date. "Something's inspiring you," Zora shrugged. "Just trying some new techniques." And does this new technique have dark hair? And his own company? Before Zora could answer, a woman at the next table gasped, staring at her phone. "Oh my God, it's Hayden Kessler," the woman said to her friend, turning the phone to show her. "He's dating some cooking teacher or something." Zora froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. Lisa snatched her phone and quickly searched online. Her eyes widened as she showed the screen to Zora. There, on the gossip site City Pulse, was a photo of Hayden leaving Zora's apartment building, smiling. The headline read, "Billionaire bachelor Hayden Kessler's secret girlfriend revealed." "Oh no," Zora whispered, reading the article with growing horror. The piece was filled with speculation about their relationship, describing Zora as a humble teacher who captured the heart of the city's most eligible bachelor. There were quotes from sources close to the couple, claiming they had been secretly dating for weeks. Worst of all, there were more photos. Hayden and Zora shopping for groceries, walking together in the park, laughing outside a bookstore, moments Zora had thought were private. "So this is crazy," Lisa said, scrolling through the article. "How did they get all these pictures?" "I don't know," Zora said, feeling sick. "We weren't hiding, but we're not even—" Her phone buzzed with a text from Hayden. "Have you seen it? I'm so sorry, can I come over?" Zora texted back, "My place in an hour." Back at her apartment, Zora paced nervously. This was exactly why getting involved with someone like Hayden was a bad idea. Their worlds were too different. His life was public property, fodder for gossip columns and paparazzi. Hers was quiet, ordinary, private. When Hayden arrived, he looked genuinely distressed. "Zora, I'm so sorry. I had no idea they were following us." "How could you not know?" she asked, more sharply than she intended. "Isn't this your normal life?" "No," he said firmly. "I've always been private. This is new." "Well, welcome to my new normal," Zora said, gesturing to her phone, which had been buzzing non-stop with notifications. "My students saw the article. My principal called. Even my ex-boyfriend texted me." Hayden ran a hand through his hair. "I'll fix this. I'll have my PR team put out a statement." "A statement?" Zora interrupted. "About what exactly? What are we doing here, Hayden?" The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken feelings. "I don't know," he admitted, "but it feels important." Zora shook her head. "I won't be your publicity project, for your feel-good headline." "Is that what you think this is?" Hayden asked, looking hurt. "I don't know what this is," Zora said honestly. "A billionaire CEO and a substitute teacher? It doesn't make sense." "It makes sense to me," Hayden said, softly. "When I'm with you, cooking in this kitchen, talking about normal things, I feel like myself for the first time in years. Not Hayden Kessler, CEO. Just Hayden." Zora wanted to believe him, but the article had shaken her. "Maybe we should take a step back, give things time to die down." Pain flashed across Hayden's face, but he nodded. "If that's what you want." "I think it's what we need," Zora said, though her heart protested. At the door, Hayden turned to her. "I don't want to fix you, Zora. I just want to know what you'll cook next and if I can help stir the pot." The simple honesty of his words nearly broke her resolve, but Zora stood firm. "Goodbye, Hayden." After he left, Zora curled up on her couch and cried. She told herself it was for the best. Their cooking lessons had been a temporary detour, a brief intersection of two very different lives. Now they would each return to their own paths. But as she wiped away her tears, Zora realized her apartment felt emptier than it ever had before. Across town, Hayden stood in his penthouse, staring out at the city lights. For the first time, his success, his wealth, his carefully constructed life felt hollow. He picked up his phone, tempted to call Zora, but put it down again. She had asked for space, and he would respect that. Instead, he went to his kitchen, a high, sleek professional space he rarely used before meeting Zora. Opening his refrigerator, he found the leftovers she had packed for him after their last dinner together. Chicken marsala in a simple plastic container with a note, "Heat for 2 minutes, not 1:59, not 2:01, exactly 2 minutes. Z." The note made him smile despite his sadness. Zora was precise about cooking times. As he ate the perfectly reheated meal, alone at his massive dining table, Hayden made a decision. He wouldn't pressure Zora or use his influence to win her back. Instead, he would show her, through actions rather than words, that what they had was real. The next morning, Hayden called his assistant. "Cancel my appointments for the afternoon," he said, "and find me the address of the local food pantry nearest to Lincoln High School." His assistant, used to unusual requests, didn't question him. "Yes, Mr. Kessler. Anything else?" "Yes," Hayden said, looking at Zora's note again. "Find out everything you can about culinary school scholarships." Meanwhile, Zora threw herself into work. She graded papers with renewed focus, updated her blog with recipes she cooked alone, and tried not to check her phone for messages from Hayden. The gossip about them eventually died down, replaced by newer celebrity scandals. But Zora couldn't shake the feeling that something important had slipped through her fingers. 2 weeks after their goodbye, Lisa called Zora in an excited state. "You need to come down to the food pantry right now," she insisted. "I can't," Zora protested. "I have papers to grade." "The papers can wait. Trust me, you want to see this." Curious and slightly annoyed, Zora made her way to the community food pantry where she and Lisa volunteered monthly. As she walked in, she was surprised to see an unusually large number of volunteers sorting donations. "What's going on?" she asked Lisa, who was waiting for her at the entrance. "We got a huge donation," Lisa explained, pulling Zora toward the back room. "Enough to feed twice as many families this month. And guess who's been organizing it all?" Lisa pushed open the door to reveal Hayden Kessler, sleeves rolled up, sorting canned goods alongside other volunteers. He didn't notice Zora at first, too focused on explaining to an elderly volunteer how to log donations in a new tablet system he had apparently provided. "He's been coming every day for the past 2 weeks, Lisa whispered. "No cameras, no publicity. He told everyone his name is just H. Most of them have no idea who he is." Zora watched, speechless, as Hayden patiently showed the volunteer how to use the tablet again. He looked different, more relaxed, in a simple t-shirt and jeans, his hair slightly messy. As if sensing her presence, Hayden looked up. When their eyes met, his face brightened with hope, quickly followed by uncertainty. He excused himself from the volunteer and walked over to Zora. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi," she replied, not knowing what else to say. "I should explain," he began, but Zora interrupted him. "You've been volunteering here every day." Hayden nodded. "You mentioned once that you and Lisa donate your blog leftovers here. I thought I could help. Anonymously. It's not about the publicity," he said. "It never was with you." Zora studied his face, seeing sincerity in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me? You asked for space." "I wanted to respect that." He hesitated. "But I also wanted to show you that I meant what I said, about wanting to know what you'll cook next." Before Zora could respond, an older woman approached them. "H, are we still organizing the cooking class for next week? I've got 10 families signed up already." Hayden smiled at her. "Absolutely, Mrs. Collins. I've got the ingredients covered." The woman patted his arm. "You're a good boy," she said before walking away. "Cooking class?" Zora asked when they were alone again. "Many of the families here don't know how to prepare nutritious meals on a budget," Hayden explained. "I thought, well, I learned so much from you. Maybe I could pass some of that along." Something warm unfurled in Zora's chest. This wasn't the action of a man seeking publicity or trying to impress her. This was someone who had truly listened to her, who had taken what she taught him and found a way to make it matter. "Hayden," she began, not sure what she wanted to say. "I miss you," he said simply. "I miss cooking with you, talking with you, just being with you." Zora felt tears prick her eyes. "I miss you too." "Then let me come back," he said, taking a step closer. "Not for the cooking lessons or the recipes, for you, Zora, just you. She wanted to say yes immediately, but caution held her back. What about the gossip, the publicity? I can't promise it won't happen again, he said honestly. But I can promise to face it together. No statements, no PR teams. Just us, figuring it out as we go. Zora looked at him. This man who had shown up at her door with groceries, who had chopped vegetables like he was performing surgery, who had now humbly inserted himself into her world, without fanfare or expectations. Okay, she said finally. Hayden's face lit up. Okay? Yes, but on one condition. Anything. Next time, she said with a small smile, I get to pick the recipe. Hayden laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Deal. As they stood there, surrounded by canned goods and pasta boxes, Zora realized that sometimes the best recipes weren't found in cookbooks. Sometimes they were created by accident, with unexpected ingredients and no clear instructions, like an accidental email that led to a grocery list that led to this moment, and she couldn't wait to see what they would cook up next. Hayden and Zora left the food pantry together, walking side by side through the early evening streets. For the first time in weeks, Zora felt light, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Are you hungry? Hayden asked. Starving, Zora admitted. I was too nervous to eat lunch after Lisa called. Nervous? Hayden raised an eyebrow. I didn't know what to expect, she explained. The last thing I imagined was finding you organizing canned goods with Mrs. Collins. Hayden laughed. She's quite a force of nature. Reminds me of my grandmother. She called you a good boy, Zora teased. I don't think the board of Kessler Ventures would agree. Probably not, he agreed, his eyes crinkling at the corners. But I'll take Mrs. Collins' opinion over theirs any day. They decided to go to a small neighborhood diner, the kind of place where no one would expect to find Hayden Kessler. The waitress didn't give him a second look as she showed them to a booth in the back. Over burgers and fries, they began to rebuild what had been interrupted. Hayden told Zora about his work at the food pantry, how he'd been helping them upgrade their inventory system and storage facilities. I'm organizing a fundraiser next month, he explained. Nothing flashy, just a community dinner. I was hoping you might help plan the menu. I'd love to, Zora said, touched by his thoughtfulness. As they ate, Zora noticed something different about Hayden. He seemed more relaxed, less guarded. The polished businessman was still there, but now she could see the person underneath more clearly. You've changed, she observed. Hayden considered this. I think I'm just remembering who I was before the company took over my life. Being at the food pantry, doing something directly helpful instead of just writing checks. It feels right. And the cooking classes were your idea, he nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. I'm not qualified to teach, obviously, but I thought we could bring in experts. Maybe even a certain food blogger I know. Zora smiled. I might know someone. Their conversation flowed easily, picking up where they had left off weeks ago. By the time they finished their meal, it was as if they had never been apart. Can I walk you home? Hayden asked as they left the diner. I'd like that, Zora replied. The evening air was cool, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. They walked slowly, neither wanting the night to end. When they reached Zora's building, she hesitated, then made a decision. Would you like to come up for coffee? Hayden's smile was answer enough. Inside her apartment, Zora was suddenly aware of how much had changed since Hayden first arrived with her grocery list. Her living room now featured several framed photographs of dishes from her blog. The cookbook collection on her shelf had expanded. The leather-bound recipe notebook Hayden had given her sat prominently on the coffee table, already half filled with carefully written recipes. Your place looks different, Hayden noted, glancing around. I've been busy, Zora said, moving to the kitchen to make coffee. The blog is doing really well lately. I've even had a few companies reach out about sponsored posts. That's fantastic, Hayden said sincerely. As Zora prepared the coffee, she felt Hayden behind her, close but not touching. The air between them seemed charged with unspoken words. Zora, he said softly. She turned to face him, their bodies only inches apart in the small kitchen. Yes? I've missed this, he said, gesturing to the space around them. Your kitchen, your recipes, you? Zora's heart hammered in her chest. I've missed you too, Hayden reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The simple gesture sent shivers down her spine. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Instead of answering, Zora closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened as Hayden pulled her closer. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. "I've wanted to do that since the first night I came here with your grocery list," Hayden admitted. "Why didn't you?" Zora asked, still in the circle of his arms. "I didn't want to scare you away, and I wasn't sure if you felt the same way." Zora smiled up at him. "For a brilliant businessman, you can be pretty clueless." Hayden laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest against hers. "I'm better with spreadsheets than with women, apparently." They moved to the couch, coffee forgotten. For hours they talked and kissed and talked some more, making up for lost time. Hayden told her about his lonely childhood, his workaholic father, the pressure to always achieve more. Zora shared stories of her mother's illness, her struggle to balance teaching and her passion for cooking, her fear of never being good enough. It was past midnight when Hayden reluctantly said he should go. "Stay," Zora said impulsively. "Not. I mean just to sleep. I don't want you to leave yet." Hayden's expression was tender. "Are you sure?" "Completely." That night, Zora fell asleep in Hayden's arms, feeling safer and more content than she had in years. Her last conscious thought was how strange life could be, how an accidental email had somehow led to this moment. The next morning, Zora woke to the smell of coffee. She found Hayden in her kitchen attempting to make breakfast. The sight of him, hair rumpled, shirt wrinkled, concentrating intensely on not burning the toast, made her heart swell. "Good morning," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. He turned in her embrace, kissing her softly. "Good morning. I was trying to surprise you with breakfast, but I think I need a few more cooking lessons." "It's the thought that counts," Zora laughed, rescuing the slightly blackened toast. They ate at her tiny kitchen table, sharing sections of the newspaper, their feet tangled together underneath. It felt so natural, so right, that Zora had to remind herself they had only known each other for a little over a month. "I have a meeting I can't miss this morning," Hayden said reluctantly. "But dinner tonight?" "I'd love that," Zora replied. "My place or yours?" Hayden hesitated. "I've been thinking. You've never seen my home. Would you like to come over? I could attempt to cook for you," emphasis on attempt. Zora smiled at his nervousness. "I'd like that." After Hayden left, promising to send a car for her at 7, Zora called Lisa. "Well," her sister demanded without preamble, "did you talk to him?" "We did more than talk," Zora admitted, then quickly added, "Not like that. But we're together now, I think. Officially." Lisa squealed with excitement. "I told you he was serious about you. So what's the plan now?" "Dinner at his place tonight," Zora said. "He's going to cook." "Oh my God," Lisa laughed. "Take pictures, or better yet, video. I need to see Hayden Kessler attempting to cook." "Be nice," Zora chided, though she was smiling. "He's really trying." "He is," Lisa agreed, suddenly serious. "Zoe, I was wrong about him. The way he's been at the food pantry. He's not doing it for show. He genuinely cares." "I know," Zora said, softly. "That's what scares me." "Why would that scare you?" Zora sighed. "Because this still feels like a fairy tale. The billionaire and the teacher, it doesn't happen in real life." "Maybe not usually," Lisa acknowledged. "But it's happening to you. Don't sabotage it because you're scared." After hanging up, Zora went about her day, teaching her classes at Lincoln High, but her mind kept drifting to the evening ahead. She'd never seen Hayden's home. Would it be cold and impersonal like the offices she'd glimpsed in magazine photos of Kessler Ventures? Or would it reflect the warm, thoughtful man she was coming to know? At 7 precisely, a sleek black car pulled up outside her apartment building. The driver, a friendly older man named Frank, opened the door for her. Mr. Kessler said to take "You the scenic route, miss," he explained with a wink. Said something about building anticipation. The drive took them through the city's most beautiful areas, finally winding up a hillside to an exclusive neighborhood overlooking the water. Frank pulled up to a security gate which opened silently at their approach. "Here we are, miss," he said, stopping in front of a modern glass and stone house. "Mr. Kessler is waiting for you inside." Zora stepped out of the car, suddenly nervous. The house was beautiful, but understated, not the ostentatious mansion she had half expected. Large windows overlooked the city lights below. Before she could ring the bell, the door opened. Hayden stood there, looking both excited and anxious. "Welcome," he said, taking her hand and leading her inside. The interior was open and airy, with warm wood floors and comfortable-looking furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the spectacular view, but what caught Zora's attention was the kitchen. It was a chef's dream. Professional-grade appliances, marble countertops, copper pots hanging from a rack. "This is amazing," she breathed, running her hand along the counter. "I never used it before I met you," Hayden admitted. "The chef comes in twice a week to prepare meals that I usually eat at my desk." "That's so sad," Zora said without thinking. Hayden laughed. "I know, but I'm learning." He gestured to the stove, where several pots were simmering. "I'm making pasta, primavera, or trying to. Can I help?" Zora offered. "No way," Hayden said firmly. "Tonight you sit and I cook. Those are the rules." He poured her a glass of wine and insisted she sit at the counter while he finished preparing the meal. Zora watched, amused and touched, as he carefully followed what was clearly a printed recipe, his forehead furrowed in concentration. The pasta was slightly overcooked and the vegetables a bit too soft, but to Zora, it was the best meal she'd ever had. "This is delicious," she told him sincerely. "You're a terrible liar," Hayden laughed, "but thank you for pretending." After dinner, he gave her a tour of the house. It was beautiful but sparsely decorated, with few personal touches except for a wall of photos in his study. Zora looked closely at them. Hayden with his grandmother, Hayden receiving awards, Hayden breaking ground on various company projects. "No family photos?" she asked gently. "My parents and we're not close," he admitted. "They live in Europe. Now I see them at Christmas usually." "That sounds lonely." Hayden shrugged. "It was what I knew. Until recently, I didn't realize what I was missing." Their eyes met, and Zora saw vulnerability there. This powerful, wealthy man was opening himself to her in ways that had nothing to do with money or success. Later, as they sat on his terrace overlooking the city, Hayden took her hand. "I have something to ask you," he said, suddenly serious. Zora's heart raced. "Okay, I've been thinking about your blog and how talented you are, and I remembered something you said about culinary school being your original dream." "Yes?" Zora wasn't sure where this was going. "There's a culinary institute in the city that offers an executive program, weekends and evenings. It's designed for working professionals who want to get formal training." Zora stared at him. "Hayden, those programs cost a fortune." "I know," he said carefully. "And I want to be clear, this isn't me trying to buy your affection or change you, but I'd like to offer you a scholarship through the Kessler Foundation, not from me personally." "A scholarship?" Zora repeated, confused. "We've been developing a program for adults pursuing second careers," Hayden explained. "You'd be the perfect first recipient. Your blog already shows you have the talent and dedication. This would just give you the formal training to take it to the next level." Zora didn't know what to say. Part of her was touched by his thoughtfulness, by how he had listened to her dreams and found a way to support them. Another part worried about what accepting would mean. "I don't know, Hayden," she said honestly. "It feels like a lot." "You don't have to decide now," he assured her. "The program doesn't start for 2 months. Just think about it." Zora nodded, leaning against his shoulder as they looked out at the twinkling city lights. "Thank you for thinking of me." "I think of little else these days," he admitted, kissing the top of her head. The next few weeks passed in a happy blur. Hayden and Zora fell into a comfortable routine. Dinner together most nights, either at her apartment or his house, cooking lessons that often ended with laughter and kisses, quiet evenings talking about everything and nothing. They worked together at the food pantry, where Hayden continued his anonymous volunteer work as H. Zora started teaching cooking classes there, showing families how to prepare healthy, affordable meals. She was surprised to discover how much she enjoyed teaching cooking. The look of pride on people's faces when they mastered a technique was deeply satisfying. On weekends, they explored the city together, discovering small restaurants and food markets. Hayden seemed to delight in experiencing these places through Zora's eyes. Her enthusiasm for a perfectly baked loaf of bread or a unique spice blend was contagious. Zora's blog flourished as she documented their culinary adventures. She never mentioned Hayden by name, referring to him only as my cooking student. But her regular readers noticed the change in tone. Her writing was more passionate, more alive. One evening, as they cooked together in Hayden's kitchen, he asked, casually, "Have you thought any more about the culinary program?" Zora hesitated. She had been thinking about it a lot. "I have. And I want to do it," she said firmly. "But not as a scholarship recipient. I want to pay my own way." Hayden looked surprised. "The tuition is steep, Zora." "I know, but my blog has been doing really well. I've been getting sponsorship offers, and a cookware company wants me to develop recipes for them." She took a deep breath. "I've been saving, and with a small loan, I can make it work." Hayden studied her face. "This is important to you, isn't it? Doing it on your own?" "It is," she confirmed. "I appreciate your offer, truly. But I need to know I earned this." Instead of arguing, Hayden smiled. "I understand. And I'm proud of you." Zora felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had been worried he would be offended, but instead, he respected her decision. It was another reminder of why she was falling for him, because she was falling hard and fast. Each day with Hayden revealed new layers to him: his dry sense of humor, his intense focus when working on a project, his unexpected tenderness. He would leave her little notes in her cookbook, send flowers to her classroom for no reason, remember small details about her day. One night, as they lay tangled together in his bed, Zora finally admitted it to herself. She was in love with Hayden Kessler. The realization should have frightened her, but instead, it filled her with a peaceful certainty. Whatever happened, whatever challenges they faced, this feeling was real. She didn't say the words aloud, not yet, but as she watched Hayden sleeping beside her, his face relaxed and vulnerable, she knew it was only a matter of time. What she didn't know was that across town, forces were gathering that would test their newfound happiness in ways she couldn't imagine. Kevin Reynolds, Zora's ex-boyfriend and a struggling journalist, had been watching the gossip about Hayden Kessler with interest. When he'd first seen Zora's name linked with the billionaires, he'd been skeptical, but as time passed and more photos appeared, he sensed an opportunity. He'd been trying to break into serious journalism for years, with little success. But a tell-all piece about the mysterious Hayden Kessler, written by someone who knew his new girlfriend, that could be his ticket. Kevin spent weeks gathering information, contacting former Kessler Ventures employees, digging through old business records. Most of what he found was disappointingly positive. Hayden was known as a tough but fair boss. His business practices were ethical, his philanthropy genuine. But then Kevin uncovered something interesting. 5 years ago, Kessler Ventures had acquired a small family-owned food company called Bennett's Best. The timing of the acquisition had been suspicious, coming just days after the founder, Robert Bennett, suffered a heart attack. Robert Bennett, Zora's father. Kevin dug deeper and found court records showing the Bennett family had sued Kessler Ventures, claiming they had taken advantage of Robert's illness to push through the acquisition at a fraction of the company's worth. The case had been settled out of court, the terms sealed. Had Zora known about this when she got involved with Hayden? Did she know now? Kevin smelled a story: revenge, deception, or perhaps a bizarre coincidence. Either way, it was the angle he needed. As Kevin worked on his exposé, Zora and Hayden continued in blissful ignorance. Zora had been accepted to the culinary program and was preparing to start classes in 3 weeks. Her blog had gained enough sponsors that she felt confident taking out a loan for the remaining tuition. Hayden had restructured his work schedule to make more time for her and the food pantry. He seemed happier than anyone at his company could remember seeing him. The night before the food pantry's community dinner fundraiser, Hayden took Zora to dinner at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the harbor. They had just finished dessert. when he reached across the table and took her hand. "I have something to ask you," he said, his expression unusually serious. Zora's heart skipped. "Okay." "These past months have been the happiest of my life," Hayden said, his eyes never leaving hers. "Before I met you, I was just going through the motions. Now every day feels full of possibility." "I feel the same way," Zora said softly. "So, I was wondering," Hayden took a deep breath, "would you consider moving in with me? Not right away if you're not ready, but soon?" Before Zora could answer, her phone buzzed insistently in her purse. She ignored it, focusing on Hayden. "Yes," she said, surprising herself with how certain she felt. "I'd love to." Hayden's face lit up with joy. "Really? Really," she confirmed. "But I warn you, my cookbook collection takes up a lot of space." "I'll build more shelves," he promised, leaning across the table to kiss her. Zora's phone buzzed again, then again. Finally, with an apologetic smile, she checked it. 3 missed calls from Lisa and a text that made her blood run cold. "Call me now. Something terrible is about to happen." Zora excused herself and stepped outside to call her sister. Lisa answered immediately, her voice frantic. "Zoe, listen to me. Kevin is about to publish an article about Hayden and your father's company. It's bad, really bad." Zora felt dizzy. "What are you talking about? What company?" "Dad's company, Bennett's Best. The one he lost after his heart attack. Hayden's company. Bought it." "That's not possible," Zora said automatically. "Hayden would have told me. Kevin says he has proof. He's going public tomorrow morning unless Hayden agrees to an exclusive interview tonight." Lisa paused. "Zoe, Kevin called me for a comment. He's trying to make it sound like you're dating Hayden for revenge." The world seemed to tilt beneath Zora's feet. Her father's heart attack had triggered the depression that cost him his job, sent their family into financial trouble, and eventually contributed to her mother's stress and illness. It had been the beginning of their downfall, and Hayden had been involved. It wasn't possible he would have mentioned it unless he had known all along who she was. Unless the grocery list email hadn't been an accident from his perspective. Zora ended the call and walked back to the table in a daze. Hayden immediately sensed something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked, concerned. Zora looked at him. This man she thought she knew. This man she had fallen in love with. "Did your company acquire Bennett's Best 5 years ago?" The color drained from Hayden's face. "Zora, yes or no?" she interrupted, her voice shaking. "Yes," he admitted. "But I can explain. Did you know who I was when you got my email? Was this all some elaborate plan to—" "What? Ease your conscience, make amends?" "No." Hayden looked genuinely shocked. "I had no idea who you were until weeks after we met. When I realized the connection, I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid of losing you." "So you just kept it secret?" Zora stood up, grabbing her purse. "My father lost everything after that deal. My mother worried herself sick over our finances. And you knew this whole time?" "Please let me explain," Hayden begged, reaching for her hand. But Zora pulled away. "I need to go. I need to think." "Zora, wait." But she was already walking away, tears blurring her vision, her heart breaking with every step. Because despite her anger and confusion, one thought kept circling in her mind. She loved him. And now she didn't know if anything they had shared was real. As she stepped into the cool night air, Zora felt her world collapsing around her. Everything she thought she knew about Hayden, about their relationship, was suddenly thrown into question. And the worst part was, despite everything, her heart still ached for him. Zora walked for hours that night, tears streaming down her face. The city lights blurred around her as she replayed every moment with Hayden in her mind, questioning everything. Had it all been a lie? A calculated effort to ease his guilt? Her phone buzzed constantly, calls and texts from Hayden that she couldn't bring herself to answer. Finally, she called Lisa. "Can I stay with you tonight?" Zora asked, her voice thick with tears. "Of course," Lisa said. "I'll put on the kettle." At Lisa's apartment, Zora curled up on the couch with a mug of tea, telling her sister everything that had happened. "I just don't understand," Zora said, wiping her eyes. "If he knew who I was all along—" "Are you sure he did?" Lisa interrupted gently. Did you let him explain? What's there to explain? His company took advantage of Dad when he was sick. Our family never recovered from that loss. Zora's voice hardened. And he kept it from me all this time. Lisa hesitated. Zoe, I need to tell you something. Kevin came to see me last week, asking questions about Dad's company. I told him to leave it alone, but he was determined to write this story. Well, he was right, Zora said bitterly. No, that's the thing, Lisa said. I talked to Dad after Kevin left. He told me something we didn't know. The heart attack wasn't the reason he sold the company. Zora stared at her sister. What do you mean? The company was already failing. Dad had made some bad investments, taken on too much debt. He was weeks away from bankruptcy when Kessler Ventures made their offer. Lisa took Zora's hand. Dad said the acquisition actually saved them from complete financial ruin. They were able to pay off their debts and still have something left over. That can't be right, Zora protested. Dad was devastated after the sale. He blamed it for everything that happened afterward. Because he was ashamed, Lisa explained. It was easier to blame Kessler Ventures than admit he had mismanaged the company our grandfather built. He told me he's regretted that lie for years. Zora's mind raced. If Lisa was right, then the story Zora had believed for years, that her father's company had been snatched away during his illness, wasn't true. But that didn't explain why Hayden had kept the connection secret. Why didn't he tell me? She whispered, more to herself than to Lisa. I don't know, Lisa admitted. But shouldn't you at least hear him out? Zora spent a restless night on Lisa's couch, her thoughts in turmoil. By morning, her hurt and confusion had hardened into resolve. She needed answers, and there was only one way to get them. She called Kevin. Zora, I was hoping to hear from you, he said, sounding far too pleased with himself. I'm ready to go public with the story, but I wanted to give you a chance to comment first. I want to see what you have, Zora said coldly. All of it. Before you publish anything. Kevin hesitated. I've put a lot of work into this, Zora. It's going to be big. If you publish without letting me see it first, I'll give my exclusive response to your competitor, she threatened. Your choice. An hour later, Zora sat in a coffee shop, reading through Kevin's draft article on his laptop. The piece was sensationalized and misleading, painting Hayden as a ruthless corporate raider who had preyed on the Bennett family's misfortune, then somehow orchestrated meeting Zora years later. This is garbage, she said, pushing the laptop away. Half of it isn't even true. Kevin shrugged. It's the angle that sells. People love a villain, especially when he's rich. And you don't care who gets hurt in the process. Come on, Zora. This guy bought your family's company for pennies on the dollar when your dad was in the hospital. Then he shows up at your door with groceries. You don't think that's suspicious? Zora thought about Hayden, his awkward vegetable chopping, his genuine delight when he mastered a recipe, his quiet work at the food pantry. None of that fit with the calculating villain Kevin was describing. When did Kessler Ventures acquire Bennett's Best? She asked. The exact date. Kevin checked his notes. May 18th, 5 years ago. Why? And who handled the acquisition? Was it Hayden personally? Kevin looked uncomfortable. Well, the paperwork shows his brother Alexander led the negotiations. But Hayden was CEO, so he must have approved it. Did you find any evidence that Hayden knew who I was before we met? Any emails, phone calls, anything connecting us? Not exactly, but... So your whole theory is based on what, exactly? Zora pressed. Coincidence? Kevin's face reddened. Look, Zora, I know you're involved with him now, but I'm not asking as his girlfriend, she interrupted. I'm asking as a journalist. Where's your proof? Kevin couldn't meet her eyes. I'm still developing that angle. In other words, you don't have any. Zora stood up. I'm not going to let you publish lies about Hayden or my family. You can't stop me, Kevin said, though he looked less confident. No, but I can sue you for defamation, and so can Kessler Ventures. How do you think that would go for your career? Leaving a stunned Kevin behind, Zora headed straight to Hayden's office. She needed to hear the truth from him face to face. The receptionist at Kessler Ventures recognized her immediately. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Kessler has been trying to reach you. Is he here?" He's in a board meeting, but I'm sure he'd want to be interrupted." "No," Zora said, suddenly uncertain. "I'll wait." While waiting, Zora noticed a wall display showing the company's history. She walked over, scanning for anything about Bennett's Best. There it was, a small mention of the acquisition 5 years ago. But what caught her eye was the date. May 18th. Something tugged at her memory. May 18th. Why was that? Date significant? And then it hit her. May 18th was the day her mother had been diagnosed with cancer. The family had been at the hospital with her when the final papers for the company sale were signed. Dad had barely been involved by that point, leaving the details to the lawyers. Had Hayden even known about her father's health issues or about her mother's diagnosis that same day? Before she could pursue that thought, the boardroom doors opened. Executives in suits filed out, followed by Hayden. When he saw Zora, he stopped mid-sentence, his face a mixture of surprise and hope. "Zora," he said, dismissing the person he'd been talking to with a nod. "You're here." "We need to talk," she said simply. He led her to his office, a large space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Unlike the rest of the building, which was sleek and impersonal, his office contained touches that reminded Zora of him. A photo of his grandmother, a small potted herb plant, a cookbook she'd given him propped open on a side table. "I've been trying to reach you," Hayden said, closing the door. "Zora, I need to explain. When did you realize who I was?" she asked directly. Hayden sighed, running a hand through his hair. "About 3 weeks after we met, I was reviewing some old acquisition files for a board presentation. Bennett's Best came up and I saw the family name. It took me a few days to confirm it was the same Bennett. And you didn't think that was something I should know?" "Of course I did," Hayden said, his voice strained. "I tried to tell you a dozen times, but every time I couldn't find the right words. At first I barely knew you. Then as we got closer, I was afraid of losing you." "So instead you just kept it secret?" Zora asked, the hurt evident in her voice. "It was wrong," Hayden admitted. "I know that. But Zora, you have to believe me. I had no idea who you were when you sent that grocery list. Our meeting really was an accident." Zora wanted to believe him. Every instinct told her he was telling the truth, but doubt still lingered. "Your company took advantage of my father when he was ill," she said. Hayden shook his head. "That's not what happened. Your father's company was already in trouble when it came to our attention. My brother Alexander handled the acquisition. I approved it, yes, but I wasn't directly involved in the negotiations." "Convenient," Zora said, though with less conviction. "It's the truth," Hayden insisted. "Look, I have the files, all of them." He went to his computer and pulled up documents, turning the screen so she could see. Bennett's Best was millions in debt. The purchase price more than covered those debts. Zora scanned the documents, seeing figures that matched what Lisa had said about their father's financial troubles. There was nothing predatory about the deal that she could see. In fact, it seemed fair given the company's situation. "Why did you keep pursuing me after you knew who I was?" she asked, her voice softer now. Hayden's expression was pained. "Because I was falling in love with you. Not because of your last name or some misplaced guilt. Because of you, Zora. The way you talk about food, how you care about your students, your kindness at the food pantry. Everything about you." The simple honesty in his voice made Zora's heart ache. "I should have told you," Hayden continued. "It was wrong to keep it from you, and I'm sorry. But please believe that nothing else between us was a lie. Not one moment." Zora looked at him, really looked at him. The man who had shown up at her door with groceries, who had worked anonymously at a food pantry, who had supported her dreams without trying to take them over, who had brought joy and laughter back into her life. "Lisa told me something last night," she said slowly. "That Dad was ashamed of losing the company, that he blamed your firm instead of accepting responsibility." Hayden nodded cautiously. "The company was in trouble before he got sick. The heart attack complicated things, but it wasn't the cause of the sale. Why didn't you tell me this when I accused you last night?" "Because it wasn't my place to contradict your understanding of your family's history," Hayden said simply. I thought you'd be more likely to believe your sister than me." His consideration, even in the midst of her accusations, touched her deeply. "There's a reporter," Zora said. "Kevin Reynolds. He's writing an article about all this, trying to make... It seemed like you targeted me deliberately." "I know," Hayden said. "My PR team alerted me this morning. They want me to issue a statement, but I told them I needed to talk to you first." "What will you say?" "The truth. That I had no idea who you were when we met. That I should have told you about the connection sooner. That I'm in love with you and hope you can forgive me." The words "in love with you" made Zora's heart skip. It was the first time he'd said it. "You love me?" she asked softly. Hayden stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "More than I thought possible. These past months with you have been the happiest of my life, Zora. When you walked away last night, it felt like all the light went with you." Tears filled Zora's eyes. "I was so hurt, thinking everything between us might have been based on a lie." "None of it was a lie," Hayden promised, "especially not how I feel about you." Zora took a deep breath. There was still so much to process, to discuss. But one thing was clear. She loved this man. And she believed him. "I love you too," she said. "That's why it hurts so much." Hayden pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I'm so sorry, Zora. I promise. No more secrets between us." They stood there for a long moment, the hurt beginning to heal. Then Zora pulled back, remembering something. Kevin's still planning to publish his article. It's full of lies and speculation, but it could hurt us both. Hayden considered this. What if we beat him to it? Tell our story, on our terms? How? Your blog, Hayden suggested. You could write about us, the real story, about the accidental email, the grocery list, everything that happened after. You don't have to mention the company connection if you don't want to. The idea appealed to Zora. Taking control of their narrative rather than letting someone like Kevin twist it. I could do that, she said. But are you sure? You've always been so private. Some things are worth going public for, Hayden said, smiling down at her. You're one of them. That night, Zora sat at her laptop, fingers flying. Over the keys, she wrote about an accidental email and an unexpected visitor, about cooking lessons and quiet conversations, about misunderstandings and reconciliations, about finding love in the most unlikely place. She titled it simply, The Grocery List. Within hours of posting it, the blog went viral. People were captivated by the romance of it all, the billionaire and the teacher, brought together by a simple mistake. Kevin's attempted expose was completely overshadowed, reduced to a footnote in a much bigger, happier story. 2 months later, Zora moved into Hayden's house. Her cookbooks lined new shelves he'd had built in the kitchen. Her photos added warmth to previously empty walls. Her presence filled the spaces that had been lonely for too long. She started culinary school, paying her own way with money from her increasingly successful blog. Hayden supported her wholeheartedly, taste-testing recipes and offering encouragement on tough days. Together, they expanded the food pantry program, turning it into a community kitchen where families could learn to cook nutritious, affordable meals. Zora taught classes there twice a week, with Hayden assisting. He still introduced himself only as H, though most of the regulars had figured out who he was by now. Zora's father, after reading her blog post, reached out to Hayden. Their first meeting was awkward, but ultimately healing. Robert Bennett finally acknowledged his role in the company's failure, apologizing for years of blaming Kessler Ventures. Hayden, in turn, offered Robert a consulting position on a new food-based initiative, recognizing that despite his business mistakes, Robert knew the industry better than most. 6 months after the night of their reconciliation, Hayden suggested they have a special dinner at home to celebrate Zora's successful completion of her first term at culinary school. She assumed he would cook. His skills had improved tremendously under her tutelage, but when she arrived home, she found the house dark, except for a trail of candles leading to the back terrace. There, she found a small table set for two, with a familiar-looking tote bag sitting on one of the chairs. "What's this?" she asked as Hayden emerged from the shadows. "I thought we should go back to the beginning," he said, gesturing to the bag. "I brought groceries." Curious, Zora looked inside. The bag. It contained exactly the same items as her original grocery list. San Marzano tomatoes, fresh basil, garlic, and a small container labeled Mom's Secret Ingredient. "I thought we could make your mother's pasta sauce together," Hayden explained. For old time's sake. Touched by his thoughtfulness, Zora nodded. "I'd like that." They cooked together in comfortable synchronicity, moving around the kitchen as if dancing to music only they could hear. Hayden no longer chopped vegetables like he was performing surgery, as Zora had once teased. Now his movements were confident, practiced. As the sauce simmered, filling the kitchen with the familiar aroma of tomatoes and basil, Hayden cleared his throat. "I have something for you," he said, suddenly nervous. "A grocery list of my own." He handed her a folded piece of paper. Curious, Zora opened it to find a neatly typed list. Is white gold ring 1 diamond, not too big, not too small. Promise of forever 1 answer, hopefully yes. Zora looked up to find Hayden kneeling before her, a small box in his hand. "Zora Bennett," he said, his voice full of emotion. "You came into my life because of a grocery list. You taught me how to cook, how to volunteer, how to live outside the office. Most importantly, you taught me how to love. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy streamed down Zora's face as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Hayden slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple, elegant diamond on a white gold band, exactly as his list had specified. "It's perfect," she said, admiring it. "But you know what this means, don't you?" "What?" Hayden asked, standing to pull her into his arms. "We're going to have to make a grocery list for the wedding menu." Hayden laughed, the sound warm and full of happiness. "As long as you're the one writing it this time, I don't want to take any chances." "I don't know," Zora said, smiling up at him. "That first mistake turned out pretty well, I'd say." Hayden kissed her then, a kiss full of promise and joy and plans for the future. In the background, the sauce bubbled gently on the stove, filling the air with the scent of home. Later that evening, as they shared the pasta with Zora's sister and Hayden's closest friends in an impromptu engagement celebration, Zora found herself marveling at the twists and turns that had led to this moment. An accidental email, a grocery list, a knock at the door. Life rarely went according to plan. Sometimes it went better. As Hayden raised his glass in a toast, his eyes finding hers. Across the table, Zora knew that whatever recipe life had in store for them next, they would face it together, and it would be delicious. The end.